Knightmare from the BigFooty community, and I'm here having an interview today with Derek Hine, Collingwood recruiter. G'day, Derek.
G'day, how are we?
I've got 10 questions for you, if that's all right. Hopefully it won't take too much of your time. The first question I've got here, do you follow any drafts or the list management of any teams in any other sports?
Yeah, I mean, we generalise, I suppose, more in terms of their processes and the way they go about it. You may not be aware, I've just come back from America, looking at the testing, the AFL testing in LA, and prior to that and post that, we went and visited with a few NFL clubs and player agents and looked at different systems and processes, and we're trying to glean as much as we possibly can and how we can potentially improve our systems.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. Okay, next question. How extensively do you study past drafts, and does this have any influence on future drafting decisions?
We study not so much the draft itself, but more the decisions we make, either in a positive or a negative sense. What we try to do is be able to look at what we call retrospective analysis. So we looked at, okay, well, here's a particular player that we had an interest in, and is he performing to the level that we imagine he would potentially perform to, or is he not? And then if he is, well, that's confirmation on a positive decision that we could have made. But retrospectively, we look at, why isn't the athlete performing at the level? So is it because of injury? Is it because of some form of trauma in his life? Is it because he just can't handle living away from home, etc., etc., etc.? So there's potentially different pointers that we look at. We don't look at the generalising in terms of the draft itself, but we certainly look at player. That retrospective analysis, if you like, is something that we look at almost on a daily basis.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. With the list depth now looking strong with lots of young, promising players coming through, is it likely we reduce the list turnover this off-season? Or will it stay sort of roughly the same as the last few years?
Well, potentially.
What do you feel?
Last year we went into last year's draft thinking that we maybe only have 2 selections, and a lot of our processes was to get in early in the draft, as you'd be aware.
Yep.
But the opportunity presented itself late, where there was 2 players that we rated and that were still sitting there. So what we're able to do prior to the draft, we had to give ourselves the scope to be able to choose the players, and that's in terms of the position on the list, but also making the salary cap as well. So it's a little bit simplistic to say that we're going to have X amount of picks, because opportunities present themselves as they go in terms of a trading sense or a drafting sense. But the main thing is, from our side of things, that we need to make sure that we're right up to speed to be able to attack any opportunity that presents itself.
Yep, yeah, that sounds absolutely perfect. 195 centimetre key position players and have them drafted as on-ballers or wingmen. Is it something you see happening in the future, or is it, what's your opinion on that, with really super tall players in various positions?
It just depends. I wouldn't overlook a player. Ideally, you'd like the bigger body type. One of the smaller midfields in the competition won the premiership last year, so it's really simplistic to say, well, we like this sort of profile. If the player is capable of playing the role, it doesn't matter whether he's 180 centimetres or 197 centimetres. It's a like for like. An example being is that we've brought in Tom Langdon this year, who has played really well and consistently well off a half-back flank for us, but we see him as a long-term midfielder who is that 189, 190 bigger body player that will go through. Scharenberg is a player that can certainly go through the midfield as well. So it's about getting the players into the organisation and developing them accordingly. Because the size of the player is irrelevant. Yet, sure, we'd like the taller types in there, but it's a sort of horses for courses, if you like.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, like, based on traits, like, say, for instance, for an on-bowler, if they have really good ground ball skills, quick hands, those sort of things, would that be viable, or it's just more you'd look for the standard height, I suppose?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's three key areas in any particular role that you're going to be playing on the field. It's A, has he got the physical capacity to play the role? B, has he got the psychological traits to be able to play the role? And C, has he got the ball winning ability and the ability to make decisions both offensively and defensively with ball in hand? And, you know, for argument's sake, if you look at Jack Frost in defence, he's reasonably one-dimensional. He brings a lot of scope in terms of his athleticism, his ability to close down, but he's not a high ball winner, so you could never imagine Jack moving up.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, next question. Our young backline's going really well this season, but with the general sort of inexperience of the group, would you be looking, as an example, and I'm not saying you trade for these players, but would you go after a Pat Fuller-Dempster or some sort of veteran backman, or would you just back in the youth and just give him the keys to holding down the backline? Yeah, or what would be your general feel at this stage?
Yeah, look, I think that Nathan and Ben Hart, because he coaches that particular area at the moment, are doing a fantastic job. He's really coaching that group really, really well.
Yeah, great.
With Nathan Brown, who's a premiership player and hasn't been able to win back his spot due to the performance of the keys. I mean, the perfect example, I think, is Jared Woods and Brodie Grundy. And that's a real pointer to where we go with the whole list, is that Nathan is really backing in these guys and the youth of the group, and he's really coaching them very, very well. So, you know, they're going to have their moments, but I think credit to Nathan and the rest of the coaching group that they've really been able to coach them through those moments, and I think you'll see the group grow, you know, reasonably quickly, which you have. You know, pretty much
you're seeing already.
In the season, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the next one. So I read with interest on AFL.com about Mason Cox, the 211 ruckman, and obviously you mentioned before you went to the US Combine. What's your sort of feel about recruiting ruckmen from America? Is it something you're going to see more? Will the AFL at some stage be half international players when talking about ruckmen, or what's your feel about international recruiting?
Well, look, we've been, as you guys would be aware, that we've been reasonably bullish about it over a period of time. If you look at our list at the moment, I don't like to call it necessarily international. I like to call it alternative athletes, because if you put all of those players into one basket, and you look at our list at the moment, you look at Jared Woods, who's a 210 centimetre former basketball cricketer, union player, never played the game before. You look at our centre halfback, Lachlan Keefe, 204 centimetre soccer player, never played the game before. You look at Kalen Mooney, who's starting to develop well as a rebounding defender in the VFL. Gaelic player, never played the game before. And Marty Clark, who's played 70-odd games over a period of time. So they're all alternative athletes, and they're all showing the capability to hold their position in the list. In Lockie Keefe's example, he's on our leadership and he's holding down a key post. So it's critically important for us to look at all opportunities, both in the national pathway and also in alternative athletes. The taller type of players out of the US, players of the Mason Cox ilk, they're in abundance there. They come through their college programs. They're extremely athletic players. If they potentially come with the right level of competitiveness and the right level of application, I think they can really translate into our game quite well, particularly from a basketball stroke soccer background, which Mason is. So to answer your question, yes, we'll continue to look at the alternative markets, and if there is an opportunity, we'll certainly go for it.
Yeah, like the power profiles of those Americans are absolutely crazy being a basketball fan. But on to the next question. What are your thoughts on Darcy Moore? What do you think is his best position? And just some general thoughts, I suppose, about him.
Yeah, well, Darcy's obviously he's
just playing a bit of everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing key forward, key back at the moment. The disappointing thing with Darcy at the moment, he just hasn't been able to quite get a run at it. He plays two, misses one, plays one, misses two, and a little bit that's to do with his growing pains, and he's had a little bit of the odd injury here and there. But hopefully now he's going to get some blue skies, and we can really have a really good look at him through the Australian Championships. He's going to get 6 games, potentially against some really quality opposition, which, e.g. the big country, Western Australia, South Australia, and so on. So that's going to give us a real good cider as to where he sits in the draft as such, and then we can make our decisions accordingly.
Of course. And what do you think is best position? I've quite enjoyed watching him at centre-half forward, but do you sort of have a feel of where you like him, or you're still pretty open-minded?
No, not really. I mean, I think they originally played him down back. He's sort of been playing a half down back and half out forward. I didn't see his game against Geelong out of Port Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, but I watched the vision yesterday, and he did play forward there, and he was really light on his feet and made some really sharp decisions. So, and that was after twisting his ankle early in the game. So he's certainly showing some scope. Let's hope that he continues to show that scope, because players with his athletic ability at 196, 197 don't come around too often, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 198 even, or 199, they're recording him on the record. But, next one, the John Marsh selection. Firstly, I really quite enjoyed that, just watching his pace through the championships. It's insane at his height. But, I'm just interested, where do you think his best position is in watching him? He's been a bit all over the place. He's now down back in the VFL, having watched the last week. So what's your opinion on his best spot?
He's a work in progress. And I think that when we make the decision to bring Jonathan into the organisation, we say, well, okay, and it's not just with Jonathan, with any player. So, well, where's the scope for improvement? And here we have a player that's 192, 3, 4 thereabouts, who has got an amazing athletic ability, but having said that, he's definitely a work in progress. He's going to be frustrating and exciting to watch over a period of time. And when you look at Jonathan's CV, he came up from Margaret River and basically started the East Fremantle program, which is their elite program in WA. So come draft day, he'd only really been in an elite program, and when I say that, an elite program where he had some high-level coaching for less than 9 months. So the challenge for us is, and more particularly the development coaches, is to expose him to a variety of positions and then settle him and give him the confidence, whether it be down back or up forward. So what you see with Jonathan playing in defence is just part of his development now. I can't say whether he'll settle there or he won't, but what I can say is it is a significant part of his development. We just felt that when he was playing forward, at times he was sort of left out of position, and so we just thought, well, okay, let's get him down back where he can play on a player and then use his offensive traits at the same time develop his defensive traits, if you like. So, yeah, it's just part of his development. I personally see him as a forward, but this period of his development down back is also critical, to his long-term future, if you like.
Yeah, for guys learning the game, definitely down back's good. Yeah. And just watching him take over games is just incredible as a forward. So much the same idea.
I mean, the pleasing thing is with Jonathan is that he's really bought into the program, and with his athletic scope and his ability to learn and hopefully develop and translate that into a playing sense. Well, if he's able to do that, he won't just be a good player; he'll be a very good player because of all those.
Pleasing to hear. Next one, Marley Williams. Do you think he'll become a midfielder over the next few years? Because just his ground ball work's incredible. His first the ball every time, bodies guys out of the way, drags the ball forward. Do you see that as a role for him, or do you think he's probably better suited down back, where he's doing a fantastic job at the moment, obviously?
Well, he's certainly playing down back well. The thing with Marley is that, he came up from Albany and played most of his football in the midfield. His 2 senior games at Claremont in the year he was drafted were played in defence. So prior to coming into the system at Collingwood, he was a midfielder, and then he basically obviously slipped into the defence and hasn't missed a beat since. But he certainly has the scope. He's starting to really tidy up on his kick. So look, I know the coach would like to probably have him through the midfield, but he also likes him in defence. So, yeah, he certainly has a scope, and he has played a lot in there, definitely.
The last question. Tom Langdon, obviously the flavour of the month, excellent pick at 65 last year. Why do you think so many clubs passed on him? Even watching him in 2012 during the finals, he was just looking incredible in the TAC Cup, and then overlooked then 2013, had a fantastic year, looked great at PFL. What do you think is the reason behind that?
I mean, I think, I really don't know. I mean, it's, I have enough trouble worrying about what I'm doing without worrying about what other clubs are doing. You know, we were one of the 18 clubs that overlooked in 2012, and I suppose that was a little bit more towards his inconsistency throughout games. I know that was a factor for us, but and what happens consistently with players that miss out on the draft, there's a real lull in terms of, you know, the world's against me, and there's a real disappointment and so on, and not too many players can bounce back really quickly, and to Tom's credit, he really did. I mean, he played the first half of the season at the Dragons as a 19-year-old, and his ability to play through the midfield was outstanding. He then went across to Sandringham as a 23rd player, so he plays his 3 games. And generally, once you've played your 3 development games, or the 23rd player as a top-up player, you slip back into the TRC system. But Tom's form was to a level where he actually played in the side on performance until he injured himself. So we were keen on Tom really early in the piece, and again we kept hearing that he might be slipping, and you know, fortunately for us, he was there at pick 65, and you know, he really hasn't missed a beat since. Well, he hasn't been out of the senior side, so he's been a pretty handy get for us, yeah.